Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and the fifth and final chapter of our 2026 MLS season previews. We're going to be taking in the 6 teams in the West we've yet to discuss, who are San Diego, San Jose, Seattle, Kansas City, St. Louis, and Vancouver. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, hello Taylor Rockwell, how are you? How have you found MLS season preview week?
I've really enjoyed it. I always enjoy doing the previews, and I'm sad. I don't feel like we've had enough more teams. We need more teams next season. I think go full 40, and let's just make this into a never-ending thing in which we're kind of constantly previewing while also discussing games, and time becomes meaningless.
No close season as well, just keep them all year round? What do we think?
Yeah. You got to preview. If you're not previewing, you're not working, you know?
That's true. Although if we did it all season round, when would we actually do our previews? There'd be no previews. It'll be never-ending.
The preview to the preview, part 1.
Wow. Great stuff. The Guardian's Jeff Rueter's here. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm on day 5, and I was really embarrassed showing up to recording today, realizing I wore the same shirt as yesterday, only to be relieved to see that 3 of you did as well. So thank you. Solidarity is really, really nice.
We need to work on our hygiene, I think, is the fact there, Jeff. Sorry.
Or we're all just Steve Jobsing it, and we all,
That's right.
instead of the black turtleneck, we've all gone with the same colorful scheme.
Right.
Yeah, there we go. Graham Ruthven's here. Graham Ruthven, is the Steve Jobs approach to sartorial elegance your nightmare, only being able to wear one thing ever?
I mean, not if it's MLS jerseys, right? I mean, that is essentially my wardrobe. Is just open it up. It's like an Adidas outlet store. So I'm maybe the closest to that experience than any of us.
If MLS ever pivot away from Adidas, their stock price is going to crash because of you. I suspect. Yeah, there we go. Joe Lowery, hello. How are you?
I'm great, man. I've enjoyed this week of shows very much, and we still have another show coming tomorrow. But I will say, Ryan teased that his St. Louis City fact, that actually works. Never mind. I'm just going to stop there. That St. Louis City fact is his favorite fact that he's dropped on us all week long. So I am stoked for St. Louis.
Yes, me too. Lots of other facts coming for other teams as well, Joe. We'll get there in a second, but before we get there, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the best way to support us. We get bonus episodes on there, bonus video, and access to our Discord. All the cool kids and people Taylor's calling nerds and they're revolting against him for calling them that are on the Discord.
I saw that. Fair.
Yeah, all nerds, so that's fine. I'm a nerd.
Nerds are cool now as well, so.
Yeah.
Nerds, gummy clusters, anybody? I mean, come on.
Only the seasonal ones. The seasonal ones are better than the regular.
Oh, that's new.
year.
That's new ground for me, Jeff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Little tangier. Little
Gonna
better.
have to experiment.
Ooh.
There we go. Nerds of all kind. Welcome in our Discord. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Our TSS Scouting Network is in there as well. Check it out to find the details and become one of our scouts. We would love you to do so. Joe Lowery, let's talk about San Diego FC, shall we? But before we get there, did you know that San Diego is absolutely teeming with parrots?
No.
Overrun with them. Thousands of them.
Sorry, I thought we were doing the parrot thing.
Hey! Graham gets a cracker. Very good. Parrots are not native to San Diego. There are bright green parrots, red-crowned Amazons, they're called. They live freely in the neighborhoods of San Diego. After escaping captivity decades ago, a pair of them, they formed their own colonies, and there's thousands of them now.
Wow.
There you go. Parrots everywhere.
What was the Orlando animal? Swans? Is that right?
Swans, yeah.
So parrots are the Orlando Swans of San Diego.
And Austin was bats.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The bats one was the worst, I think. But parrots, I mean, birds in general kind of freak me out, at least a
There
little
we go.
bit. Yeah.
I do animals and skylines on these episodes. If you want anything else, you need to go elsewhere. But obviously, Joe, San Diego's first season went rather well. Will they parrot that in their sophomore effort?
Oh, I think they might get close, San Diego, this year. Where we left them was on 63 points. First in the Western Conference, fourth in the Shield race. If you want to argue about the greatest MLS expansion team ever, and that's what San Diego was last year, you can only make a case for 2 teams. One team is the 1998 Chicago Fire, who won MLS Cup and the Open Cup right off the bat. And the other team is last year's San Diego FC team. They set the expansion record for both points and points per game. They became the most dominant first-year outfit in MLS regular season history. As something of a Shield truther, that matters a lot to me. I still recognize probably the answer just in terms of sheer accolades is that Chicago Fire team, but also the era of expansion is just so different. Like in 98, I know the league had been around, but really everybody was still kind of an expansion team. San Diego had a very different set of circumstances surrounding them. They were really good last year, regardless of what side of that debate you fall on. They made a deep postseason run too before falling to the Western Conference, falling in the Western Conference final to the Vancouver Whitecaps. The year was not about drama. and maybe I'll get to that in just a second. But they've got a clear tactical vision, San Diego, that's set out by the Right to Dream Network. The club's own sporting staff and coaching staff have done a phenomenal job basically across the board. The players were really good. San Diego were better than everybody thought they were going to be, including, I think, San Diego FC. Just incredible season last year. And I think they're going to follow it up pretty well, as I mentioned. Now, what changed over the offseason? Well, let's start with the Chucky Lozano of it all, shall we? Chucky Lozano was benched at halftime of an October game against Houston. Basically didn't play in any of the club's most important games from that point forward. And then Tyler Heaps came out and said in his first media availability of the new year, right off the bat, yeah, he's not coming back. He's not a part of our plans, and he's not going to play for us this year. Since then, San Diego released all of their club squad numbers in a social media post. No Lozano. San Diego have played 2 games, advancing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup against Pumas. No Lozano. And not just in the lineup, in the squad. Lozano, it sounds like, is not going to play for San Diego. Now, Heaps' quote was very interesting, that he chose to come out publicly about his team's most well-known player and just say, yep, we're done with him. All the other clubs, I imagine, that could have purchased Chucky Lozano from San Diego already knew that there was a rift there because the dude didn't play in the most important games of the season. I imagine Heaps is saying that for Lozano as basically a public, hey, we've probably already told you this behind closed doors, but publicly, we're going to make it very clear, you're not coming back. So it's within your best interest ahead of a World Cup to go find somewhere else to play. Lozano then, presumably, worked his way to channel messages through the media that said, I'm comfortable here. I'm going to stick around. So right now we're in a very awkward unknown standoff of he's still taking up a DP spot for San Diego. They're still on the hook to pay his contract, and that's fine. And Lozano doesn't seem to be motivated to go anywhere else to play or to take a pay cut or to do anything, really. Lozano's brother has since come out in the media and talked about how much of a head case basically Chucky is. I really have no clue how this ends. I think in the short term anyway, it ends like it is now, with Lozano sticking on San Diego's roster, not playing, and maybe he moves in the summer. Maybe he doesn't move until next year. Maybe another MLS team takes him and San Diego is still on the hook to pay most of his salary and he still takes up a DP spot. If you're looking for a reason to worry about San Diego this year, it's not that they're going to be found out by other MLS teams. It's not that they are going to regress magically like St. Louis did. That's not in the cards for them. It's that Lozano is not really been replaced. And I think that's a difficulty for this team. Now, all that said, they're still going to be really, really good. And they've added some fun pieces. They've added Lewis Morgan and Amal Pellegrino they brought in at the end of last year, and he was really good in Lozano's spot in the 11. So it's not like they haven't brought in any bodies to take up some minutes of Lozano's, but none of the same caliber, right? Morgan is a big ol' if he's going to stay healthy or not, but 29 years old, has been very, very good in MLS across a number of roles in the front line and elsewhere. Low risk, high reward sort of move. They haven't really made a ton of other notable additions. They've added some pieces along the back line. They added Bryce Duke in midfield. They moved on from 2 of their higher paid veterans because that's just what San Diego's going to do. They want to be younger than they are right now, just like Nordsjælland is basically the youngest team in all of Europe. Luca De La Torre, gone. He's now a Charlotte FC player. Paddy McNair, gone. He's with Hull City now, I reckon. 30 years old. He was supposed to be like their most important defender. They didn't need him. Wasn't even playing starting games towards the end of the year. So he's gone. San Diego, they are going to be a team, as we know tactically, that keeps the ball. And Tyler Heaps told me this for a story for Backheel ahead of last year. He said, quote, you won't see us play long out of a goal kick. That's a pretty helpful summary of how San Diego want to play. They pass the ball short whenever possible until they can create space in behind the opposing back line, and then they race forward at pace. They're a team that likes to be fairly aggressive defensively out of a fluid 4-3-3 kind of shape. They're amazing to watch. Like, they are so good to watch. And Mikey Varas, the manager, deserves a lot of credit for that. The whole structure around this team deserves a lot of credit for that. So many third-man runs, a lot of really fun play out of this team straight up. Key players, a lot of names that I think MLS fans will know by now. Anders Dreyer was the best player not named Lionel Messi in MLS last year. He's going to be starting on the right wing. He's a best 11 candidate, and it's really to his detriment that Messi is around, because otherwise he would have been MVP and would be a favorite to win it again this year if Son doesn't get it first. Jeppe Tverskov at the base of midfield is one of the best number 6s in all of MLS. Controls the game really well. Very good passer. Organizes the team in possession literally by pointing where players should move because he understands the game so well. He's so much fun to watch. Manu Dua is a center back that was the first pick in the Super Draft last year for San Diego in their expansion season. I think he's going to set a record for outgoing MLS sale for a center back. He is unbelievably good. And I honestly cannot believe that a European team didn't drop $18 million on him in this window, because I think the price is only going up. I know they don't want to spend in January, but man, that dude is incredible. Bookmark that for later on. There's just a lot of good players in this team. They're going to miss Lozano, like I said, but maybe they won't really miss him that much because they might just be able to squeeze production out of a turnip. I honestly really don't know why we should doubt San Diego at this stage. I think you could doubt that they're probably not going to be as good as LAFC, maybe not as good as Vancouver or Seattle, but they're absolutely a top 2 team in the Western Conference. My VSP for this team, either Luca Bambino, their starting left back, who I haven't mentioned yet, but he was acquired from LAFC and was an immediate starter for them last year at left back and became one of the best young players in MLS. Either Luca Bambino or Pedro Soma, another player I haven't mentioned yet. He was signed in the middle of last season. He's a former FC Barcelona youth player, U.S. Youth International, U20. He is another really, really bright player, and he's going to soak up some of the minutes left behind by Luca De La Torre. One of those guys, Bambino at left back or Soma in central midfield, will get a U.S. men's national team call-up after the World Cup this year. So not before the World Cup. That's going to come way too soon. But I think as the U.S. starts to look to the future a little bit more and how they're going to reinforce the squad for the new cycle, I think those guys are going to be in contention. Bambino's the better bet than Soma because the path to minutes at club level is clear for Bambino. There's also some European interest already in Luca Bambino as well. But one of those guys, I think, is going to get into the USMNT pool, and I think it's going to be the first in a really long line of young San Diego products, essentially, even though these are sort of repurposed products that we see playing for the national team.
Yeah, and I think that, a lot of what we were saying on yesterday's show about, the reason to have confidence that, Minnesota was going to retain something of a level is that its midfield and its defense and lots of its principles of play were intact. Well, that's especially even more true of San Diego. And I think that that's why, even if you have questions about Lozano's absence or if you have questions about, goalkeeper, these are things that, okay, well, the mid-block, the majority of the team is still going to be operating with that sort of consistency continuity from last season as well. And it's why the Columbus Crew only fell so far after winning MLS Cup under Wilfried Nancy, even as the squad turned over, is that those middle lines were so well worn that, they didn't let games get out of hand. I think that San Diego, it's truly remarkable, and it's, maybe in some ways it's fitting that they are, at least for now, the final expansion team to join the league, right? And they are the ones who maybe learned the most lessons from what teams were doing in the past and learned that, okay, St. Louis, you can win if you have a very strong commitment to the bit, but how do you actually make this sustainable? I think that that's the evolution that they took from that. And you can, of course, see the kind of DNA of Seattle and LAFC and a couple of other teams as well. Just really, really impressive what they've got going there.
Excellent stuff. We hope for more impressive stuff in their second season. Thank you very much, Joe, for telling us about San Diego. We go now to Jeff, who's going to tell us about the San Jose Earthquakes. PayPal Park, Jeff, has the largest outdoor bar in North America. It's 120 feet long behind one of the goals. The scoreboard bar, I believe it's called. Up to 35 bartenders serve on it, Jeff. Have you ever been to the longest bar in North America?
I haven't, but it's kind of amazing that there hasn't been one that's been built that's longer in a decade since. That's a missed opportunity. I think that's space that we could get into with this show.
Japan's on it, I think. Japan took the park thing. Now going to take this too.
Japan's going to have the longest bar in North America now? Wow.
Yeah. Just wait, buddy. Geopolitics is crazy right now. Just hold on.
It certainly is. I wouldn't rule it out. That's you're right, though, Jeff. Maybe we should get a TSS should launch a 121 feet long bar somewhere just to get the record.
Yeah, or even just half a foot longer. That's fine.
There you go.
Right. We're not trying to steal their clout. We're just trying to steal their record. That's all.
Exactly that. So, will the Earthquakes need a drink or two after this season? What do you think?
I think they might be drinking a little bit more champagne than commiseration bourbon, if that's what we're asking here. San Jose now is in its second year under Bruce Arena, and where we left them was at the end of their first year with Bruce Arena, which is often how chronologies work. It went pretty well, all things considered. They finished 10th in the West, granted 41 points. Usually we look at you need more than 40 to really be considered a playoff contender, and I think that's relegation, right? The line is much higher when you look at dependable playoffs. And so there still was a gap between them and, that sort of benchmark that they want to hit of consistent competitiveness. And so what have they done over the offseason? Well, they've had some turnover at the front of the formation, and a lot of this is going to be progress from within. Christian Espinoza is out. They forgot to pick up his contract option before a deadline passed. Oops. And when a player is about to hit the market and their choices are miss the playoffs again, historically likely, or any other team in MLS or the world, unfortunately, his head got turned and he is off at Nashville challenging for trophies.
Sorry to interject, Jeff, and I know we've talked about this before. I just want, let's marinate in that for a second.
This is the best time for us to actually dwell in this because we didn't really I think we were both alternating weeks at that point when it happened.
What?
How?
I mean, just think about this. Any team on the planet just forgetting to pick up the option of their best player. That is just forgetting. Not we don't rate him, which is an entirely different mistake. I would be mortified. We all make mistakes as people, right? So that, I can sort of be sympathetic to this, but it is truly one of the wildest things that has ever happened in Major League Soccer. A long-suffering servant of a long-suffering club, your best player by a country mile. Oops, our bad. Sorry. This is an all-timer. It's an absolute all-timer.
Maybe if they had a shorter bar, these kind of
Yeah,
things would have
true. They
Yeah,
spent
makes
too
you
much
think.
time at foot number 118 that they realized they missed.
What
the
intern
two-
do you think they fired as the scapegoat for that? How many? Maybe
They did fire. Did they not fire somebody from the front
Chris
office?
Leach.
Actually, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Leach.
Yeah.
You got.
They let their technical director walk, and I'm sure that there are a couple of people underneath that. It's one of those things where if you're doing that in a FIFA save or a Football Manager save, you probably rage quit and look at when you last saved, and you're going to go back because it's just such a dumb mistake that you really want to spare your blushes moving forward, or else the rest of your save is just thrown off. It's that bad. Well, you can't do that in real life. So what you do, you let Chicho Arango go. What could have been, honestly, is what I think of, because at every stop he was at, he starts, he scores when he wants to, and then he just stops wanting to. And it's a lot of kind of fits and starts and actual fits. And so he is off. Joseph Martinez, after reviving his career, is now off to Liga MX. What a shame. There was a point where it looked like he was actually going to be able to challenge Chris Wondolowski's all-time goal record, and now I think we're going to have to wait quite a while for someone who could viably threaten that benchmark. And they're starting center backs, Rodriguez, Bruno Wilson. They think they've got better alternatives. We'll see if they're right. In Timo Werner, well, that's fun. So let's dwell on this because there really aren't many other incomings of note here. Record signing, he's a focal point. He's a rare focal point in Major League Soccer who arguably is better off the ball than on the ball, though I think that some of that is a bit overblown and dated. I think that there is a lot of potential here for him, especially if you do kind of shunt him off into open space on the wing. We have seen a lot of wingers who like to cut onto their shooting foot do very well in Major League Soccer, just given the caliber of defending, let's say, and the amount of space that's available to them on the flanks. And I think that he could be really good chasing into that space. The manager and the tactics, Bruce. You know him, you love him. I've never heard a bad word about Bruce Arena. Closing gap in the expected goal difference, though, was a major accomplishment of his in his first year. It was still negative 9.5, but that was 14 goals better than it was in 2024, which is just a remarkable amount of progress in a first year. Probably a 3-4-3, something like what he was doing in New England, could now be a formation that has 10 and 2 9s, depending on how they want to do this. But if Werner's going to be a winger, you obviously aren't going to play with two strikers. It's a bit shootier, thanks to Arango and Joseph, than it was before Bruce arrived. So I think he's just going to tell them to get the ball off their feet and just better to threaten a goalkeeper than dwell on it too long and turn it over. A lot of it's mostly was like mitigate the weaknesses that the roster had proven to have before you can build into the strengths. And I think the idea now is to try to get into those strengths. Key players beyond Timo would be Preston Judd, another in the proud tradition of American strikers who are just good at getting into scoring places and therefore can be really good system forwards. 6 goals last year. He gets into really good places, though. Paul Harvey underlined this really well in a backheel piece this week that I highly recommend. He's a really good channel runner, but he's also big and able to, just kind of win the ball, get his back into it, and then play off, play off a ball to a winger or to, a late arriving midfielder, which I think could be a pretty common scoring pattern for San Jose. The engine room is good and deep. You've got Bo LaRue, who's a sneaky good finisher. He is good at doing that kind of late arriving thing that Seb Berhalter does. And it was very emergent in Bruce's first year, and I could see him sticking around. Ronaldo Vieira integrated very quickly, looked more bought in. The Carlos Gruezo as that defensive midfielder, good ball circulator, not really going to break lines, but he is pretty accurate when he chooses to. Nico Sakiris might finally get a long run as a 10 or an advanced 8, depending on the formation. Turns 21 in June. Ian Harks, steady as he goes, fills multiple roles, good in the air as well, which helps with some of those distribution patterns that they have. And then we'll see if Noel Buck plays more than last year. He was getting about 15 minutes per appearance. It looks like it was just kind of rediscovering after some lost years of development with Southampton and New England. Don't ask about the defense. Right now it is one of those things where it looks like a squad that just isn't quite fully constructed, and not quite like I'd feel better about it if it was, like what we were talking about with yesterday's show on Portland. I'd like it better if it was January. I think it's more like early February, but with the games kicking off, I think I still do have some questions about their ability to keep the goals out. So we shall see. And as for my very specific prediction, again, there is a lot of talent that has been waiting to be actualized in the San Jose group. I remember when they kind of really started to bolster their academy initiative, again, when they hired Luchi Gonzalez the first time as the head coach, not as the academy director now. But Nico Sikiris was someone that they were really bullish on, and I think this is finally the year that you see him for the first time, and this is my very specific prediction. He will eclipse 1,500 minutes in Major League Soccer because he's earning them. And the idea being that it's not just we need to get him out there to see what we have. It's, because he's good and someone that is part of our best 11. I think this is finally the year it comes together. A couple of other players to watch as well among the younger ranks, but I think he's the one who is maybe the closest to just taking that next step.
I mean, I've just been waiting for the Quakes to add a DP number 10, and they just haven't done it yet, which makes me think that they are backing Sikiris in a real way, which is fun and exciting. I mean, I don't know that that's optimal for the Quakes competing this year, but it might be optimal for the long term, where you need to start showing these academy kids that there are paths to minutes for them, because there's a ton of talent in that area. I mean, there's talent everywhere, but I think there's a lot of it in the San Jose area. I really like Sikiris as a player, and they just handed him a new U22 initiative deal. So it seems like they are rating him and are going to give him some run. I still think the Quakes need to add one more real good piece, probably, and I think they will before the window closes. But yeah, man, this is going to be a fun team. I don't know how good they're going to be, but they're going to be fun.
Fun indeed. Thank you very much, Jeff, for that one on San Jose. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking Sounders and Sporting Kansas City. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our MLS previews. We're going to head up to Seattle now, the Seattle Sounders. Taylor Rockwell is going to tell us all about them. Did you know, Taylor, that Seattle was built on...
Space Needle.
It does have
Pearl
a Space
Jam.
Needle. It has a Pearl Jam and a Soundgarden.
Okay.
But it
Oh,
was
Space Needle. I thought you were doing the Spice Ghetto thing, the Michael Caine Spice Girls. You heard that?
Yeah. Oh, so Jeff, if you haven't heard this, if you say
Oh, I can't
if you say the words space, is it space ghettos in a Scottish accent? Yeah. No, if you say space ghettos in American accent, it sounds like you're saying Spice Girls in a Scottish accent.
Sure.
That is
Space
a correct
Ghettos.
response.
Space ghettos.
I'm glad I took us down this route. It was
Space
very valuable.
ghettos.
Yeah.
Space ghettos.
Space Needle, though, is what Taylor was saying.
My fact I was going to get to before I was rudely interrupted by all of you. Seattle was built on top of Seattle. There's a buried version of Seattle beneath the modern city.
like Troy.
Yeah. In 1889, there was a massive fire. The city rebuilt on top of the old street level, about 20 feet higher, and the original underground sidewalks and storefronts still exist underneath Seattle. It was rebuilt, as I say, to prevent flooding and mud issues. This is a true thing. For a time, there were buildings that had entrances on two levels with pedestrians using ladders to move between the new street level and the old sidewalks.
Wow.
Right?
Some ancient Rome stuff right here.
Right? Also
huh?
some Futurama and
I
New
knew
New
this.
York stuff.
It is,
Build
exactly.
New New York on top. Yeah.
That must be where Futurama got the idea from,
So,
I would imagine. But, Taylor, will the Sounders build on top of what they achieved last season? That's what we need to know.
yes, they will. I am very excited to talk about the Sounders. I'm pretty hyped about them. Again, commiserations to Portland from last episode. To start off, though, this is a question for Graham and Ryan, because I suspect that Joe and Jeff will know. And I'm going to
Space
hold my hands
Ghettos.
up and say I did not. Graham, how old is Christian Roldan? Ryan, the same.
33.
34.
Less, for sure, right?
He is 30 years old.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
do we talk about him like he is 40? Why do we talk about him like he is Diego Chara? And I'm going to say that is a theme for this Seattle team. I was like, oh, man, they've got to be the first team to average 35 years of age. They're a lot younger than I think they are, and a lot of their players are a lot younger than I tend to think they are. That informs some of what I think this team is going to do. When last we left them, they had a strange but good but slightly disappointing season. They beat Inter Miami in the Leagues Cup final, 5th in the West, knocked out in the playoffs without actually losing a game because penalties don't count as losses somehow. Lots of injuries, so lots of key players missing time, but still found a way to be a kind of strong, cohesive unit that occasionally sprung very good results and were consistent throughout, even with some inconsistency, if that makes sense, which it doesn't really. In terms of the offseason, the major change would be Obed Vargas on the way out. He goes to Atletico Madrid for $3 to $4 million. And that's a big loss. He's a key player for them. But then they bring in Hassani Dotson, who's 28 years old. He's the Vargas replacement and a very capable one at that. 150-ish appearances for Minnesota in 7 seasons. And on the one hand, you lose a youngster who was very good for your midfield last year. On the other, you lose him by selling him to a European power, which potentially opens the pipeline or at least opens the door to more signings and more recruitment and more of kind of awareness of Seattle being a club that can move players on, because Sometimes we don't get as many of those links or as many of those stories, and I think that could be really critical for them. And then I think Hassani Dotson just strengthens that midfield pretty quickly. And then they did like very Seattle things, like loaning Charlotte's Nikola Petkovic, who's 22 years old, for the season. That's one of those moves that if it's DC United, I'm like, oh, what are they doing? Why? What are they even trying to do here? And with Seattle, I'm like, what do they know? Because with Petkovic, 600 minutes in MLS last season, 1,000 plus in MLS Next Pro. It feels like a player that they're like, that guy is probably going to be like good enough to be a capable deputy and occasional spot starter for us. We won't have to spend a ton of money. Maybe there's a clause in there. Maybe they try to find a way to make this a permanent deal halfway through the season for a marginal amount of money or the like. But it feels like a very Seattle signing to bring in somebody that is on loan and feels like a flyer, but then ends up being a really, really strong move because they just have consistency in their decision making. And a lot of that starts, or at least some of that starts, with Brian Schmetzer. Joe, I am not trying to outsource this preview, but I suspect you can explain this better than I can since you wrote it. You said of Schmetzer, he provides his players with a clear structure rather than detailed patterns and extreme dogmatic principles when it comes to how they play. Is he the Carlo Ancelotti of Major League Soccer?
I don't think he's quite Carlo Ancelotti. I think probably Schmetzer because he gives off that old man vibe. And some of those things that I wrote, I mean, all the things I wrote about him are true. I think he is still a bit more dialed in tactically than Ancelotti. And I think Bruce Arena probably is the Ancelotti of MLS, and Schmetzer is closer to the middle of whatever that Ancelotti to Pep spectrum is, and it works fine because he has so many good players.
So what is Brian Schmetzer then?
I don't know. I don't have a good read probably.
Put you on the spot. I'll let you marinate on that one.
Okay.
Brian Schmetzer,
I think he's in the middle. He's in the middle of Ancelotti and Pep. I don't think I can give you a
Graham's thinking
He's
now.
the greatest coach to never win Coach of the Year in Major League Soccer, but also it's entirely valid.
So,
They don't win in the regular season nearly as much as you need to win Coach of the Year. It's really just look at standings, copy paste over who their manager is. That's how voting goes for
which
most of these.
infuriates me to no end. But
Me too, but like it means that if you're finishing 2nd through 5th in your conference or 3rd through 5th every year, no one's going to be waiting for the
silence
playoffs to vote.
non-Seattle previewers. That's what I have to say about this conversation. As I go back to telling you about Seattle and their key players, maybe the keyest of players would be Albert Rusnak, who's only 31. Again, thought he was like 35. Can play in a few different spots, 11 goals, 10 assists last season, 6th most minutes of any outfield player. Seems destined for another 20-plus goal contribution season, and that would be his 3rd straight, like in terms of his time in Seattle. So a really reliable player for them, a very talented attacker who can score goals, but also like control the ball when needed, find those little passes when needed, and I think has been a very, very strong player. But the strongest player of all, the aforementioned Christian Roldan. Joe spotlighted him in his backyard preview, and I think correctly so. He's now operating deeper at kind of the base of the midfield for Seattle. Good on the ball, smart at possession, solid defensively, veteran leadership, veteran communication. We see maybe why Pochettino has come to like him so much so quickly. Graham, did we all have him starting for the U.S. at least in one game at the World Cup to come?
My prediction is he starts one game at the World Cup. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a very strong and capable Seattle team. I compared them to like. I'll hold off on that bonus prediction, but I compared them to like a team that you might play in, like if you're playing pub league or like amateur soccer. They're the team of slightly older guys who don't look that physically intimidating, but have then played together for so long and have like so much experience that you cannot get the ball off of them. And then there's one kid up top who can outrun your defenders and score, and you lose 4-0, and that feels a little bit like what Seattle are going to be this season. I just think there's an argument for like around 30. I think you lose some physicality, you lose some of that like burst of speed, but I think there can be a shift towards like match intelligence and team play, and I just feel like this is a veteran team that knows how to play off of each other, and are just extremely versatile. So many of their players, if you look at the depth chart, like are starting in one spot or can back up here or can back up here. And with some teams that feels like, oh, they're threadbare and they don't really have that many options. With Seattle, it just feels like they've got a lot of different options who can all pop up as you need them. And I haven't even mentioned Pedro de la Vega, who is still injured and probably not going to start this season or won't start this season. Very limited minutes last year compared to what I think the expectation would be of him. But he's another one who can come in and start right away if he's playing at his best form on a good day. But if he's not, you've got kind of attacking three of Jordan Morris, Albert Rusnak, and Jesus Ferreira, all of whom have plenty of minutes and plenty of experience, but are all still relatively young, all things considered. But the youngster, and the one that I would like to spotlight, is Osasi Di Rosario, who I think will end up being the starter. I hope I'm correct in saying that, because Danny Wisowski was their top scorer last season, played a good number of minutes, but it feels like it is Di Rosario's time to shine. And I think that is a very good thing for Seattle. Only 255 minutes in the league last year, but given kind of uncertainty with certain positions in the roster, specifically in that number 9 spot, he won't be the number 9. That would be Jesus Ferreira literally wearing the number 9. But I think Di Rosario starts, and my VSP is that he will score at least 15 goals this season, with a caveat that if he doesn't score goals very quickly, they will bring in somebody else to do that goal scoring, Seattle. But I think he does. I think he scores 15 goals at minimum. And a lot of that, Joe can go into why he is especially hyped on Osasi Di Rosario, because he has laid it out very well in his preview. I will just add this, and it's like very much a feel fact more so than an actual fact. But we all know his father is Dwayne Di Rosario. I've said it before, I had one of my earliest interactions in soccer was being the water boy for the Richmond Kickers when D-Ro played there. And I remember from that time how smart D-Ro was, just as a generally his intelligence, but his soccer IQ was so high compared to anybody around there. And I've had occasion to interact with him since then. I've certainly had occasion to watch him since then. And he has always struck me as a very smart person and a very smart soccer player. And has another son who's a professional athlete, has been in their lives. And I know guys who were ex-pros who had kids when they were younger, when they were still playing, and their kids played soccer because that's what dad did. And you hung out with him, and if you wanted to be around dad, you'd go play soccer. And then it becomes a thing you do together, and then it becomes a thing that eventually the kid kind of gets really, really good at as the dad continues to age. But along the way, a thing that I think can happen when you're that young, exposed to soccer at such a high level, or a person who has that high of a soccer IQ, is you learn the value of that at a younger age than I think a lot of people do. Like I said earlier, I think it took me to my mid-30s to start being wait, I can see what the opponent is doing, and then learn from that and do something different. And I think players who are exposed to the game at a younger age, at a higher level, I think figure that stuff out much, much younger. And so Osasi, I think, is a player who has the raw physical attributes, but I feel is steeped in soccer tradition, and I'm just very excited for what this season might be. We're not talking about a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old who's breaking through for the first time. He's been around. He's been in different academies. He's been abroad. But it just feels like a player who has been waiting for the right moment and the right time. And I feel like everything about this Seattle team sets up for there to be this opportunity for a youngster to come through and have this kind of breakout campaign. And I think he will. So I think he scores a minimum of 15 goals. And my bonus, not quite very specific, but bigger prediction is that I think Seattle wins the West.
Nice. That is spicy. And the De Rosario stuff, Taylor, I think is all spot on. I was really high on him at the end of last year, and a few others were too, don't get me wrong. And now the hype train is populated. We'll put it that way. 24 years old, but he has the playing profile of someone who's much younger, which is just an odd situation. The dude is giant, fast, has pretty soft feet, really moves well off the ball, and can put his laces through that thing. He is so good. Yeah, he's going to be an impact player this year.
The one thing, and I saw, so I think it was his first start in MLS after the Leagues Cup, correct me if I'm wrong, or Club World Cup. He was in Minnesota for it, and so I was watching that one, and then of course the playoff series. He was coming off the bench often late in games to try to catch a goal, and the pattern that I continually saw with him in those moments was that he was so good at getting into spaces, was good at build-up stuff, good at finding where the ball was going to be, and just didn't have the composure to connect. There was 2 gilded chances in the regular season game that he just skies over the bar, and it completely changes the game. In the playoffs, there were a couple more that he kind of shanks. It looks look, none of us can really watch MLS preseason, and I think most people don't want to be fair. I recognize the audience is very slight, and a lot of them are concentrated on this podcast right now. But from what you're seeing, how they're talking about him, what his goal returns is, it really seems like now he's in that confident spot where he's more routinely able to convert these chances. So if that carries over to competitive action, it's really easy to see him very easily eclipsing 13, 14 goals and kind of being like an Achimang-esque sort of late bloomer, just where it's like finally professionally it comes together, a little bit later than we expect these days, but in the history of MLS, pretty much right on time for a young player.
There you go. Sorry, go ahead.
And then I should mention really, really briefly, because I mostly just mentioned the attack, just quickly. The back line, probably still going to be Nuhu at left back, probably Alex Roldan at right back, or those nominal positions, and then Jackson Reagan, Yamar in the middle. Jackson Reagan's 24, Yamar is 24, Roldan is 29, Nuhu's 28. So again, I thought Nuhu was like 33. I thought Alex Roldan was even older. So to realize that these dudes are like kind of in their prime in certain ways, and then they've got young center backs who have already proven themselves, but I think will make another step this season. It just feels like there's a lot of right ingredients for Seattle.
And Thomas as well, stepping in goal with Stefan Fry as the best possible safety valve. They're my pick to win MLS Cup this year. They really are. Like it's the balance of last year with the hard lessons learned and less competition that they have to do without a Club World Cup. Like I just think that things are lining up really nicely for them, and I think that there'll be a team that can go from strength to strength regardless of selection.
All right. We expect big things in Seattle then. Maybe we expect slightly smaller things at Sporting Kansas City, though. Graham Ruthven's going to tell us about them, but not before you get not one fact, 2 facts about Sporting Kansas City. First fact.
One for every player they have on the roster.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
First fact, the first parking meter in the world was installed in Kansas City in 1935. There's your first fact.
Thanks, Kansas City, for that.
Yeah, what a legacy. What a legacy. Second fact, Kansas City has over 200 fountains, giving it the nickname the City of Fountains. Only Rome, Italy has more fountains than Kansas City. What a combo.
Whoa, Japan's working on that as well.
I know. Oh, give them time. Give them time. They'll snatch that one away. So, Graham, will good soccer flow like a fountain this season, or will it be stuck in park like in 2025?
I wouldn't count on any good soccer in Kansas City this year, frankly.
Watch the current. Watch the current, everyone.
Well, they've got Chris Armas now, who's there. Oh, no, Chris, don't go. Anyway, that was a couple of days ago. This is my final preview, and I am saving the best for last. Maybe the team that I am most confident will win something this year, and that something is the Wooden Spoon. Keep in mind, I had Inter Miami in my previews as well. That is not what KC fans want to hear, because 2025 was a dismal season. They finished bottom of the Western Conference. Only 2 teams finished with fewer points than them in the Wooden Spoon race, which is the only race in the world, ironically, you don't want to win. American Soccer Analysis said SKC had the worst XG differential of any MLS team in their database last season. So just to underline that, ever, going back to, was it 2013 or something, 2012, 2013, they were the worst XG differential. So that tells you something about how they failed. Nothing worked. The attack was bad. Somehow the defence was even worse, conceding more goals than any other team in MLS. And Peter Vermees was fired. That era finally came to an end. Obviously a club and league legend, but I don't think you'd find anyone who didn't think that was the right decision. And that decision was taken in March, April time, I believe. And KC just coasted until the end of the season under an interim manager, Kerry Zavanyan. The end of the year just could not come quickly enough for SKC. And this is where I get to some good news, because things have changed. David Lee, who was mentioned in one of our previous previews, in NYCFC preview, he's come in as the new CSO. Was highly rated at New York City, but obviously being part of City Football Group, it's not always easy to know how much is the individual, right, and how much is the model, but nonetheless that is a notable hire. We're going to find out just how good he actually is and what a task he's taken on. Another notable hire is the hire of Rafael Vicky, who MLS fans will remember from his short time at the Chicago Fire. Maybe don't hold that against him too much, because the Chicago Fire were a bin fire back then, and Vicky has a good record in Europe. He won the Swiss League with Young Boys after leaving Chicago. He has been linked with loads of European jobs over the last couple of years. So maybe he's just a glutton for punishment by returning to MLS with another bin fire of a team. That's interesting career choice from him. He's comfortable in the bin, I guess, a bit like Oscar the Grouch or something. And then the other big change is points to the entire squad. Only 12 players remain from the squad of last season. Eric Tomey, Robert Volodare, Joaquin Fernandez, Logan Ndembe. the manager Radoya, Kyrie Shelton, they are all gone, and that is not even the full list I'm not gonna give you. What is interesting about this is there's not a huge amount of incoming activity, at least in terms of notable names. A lot of their effort has been spent on building out the front office and bringing in data analysts and things like that, because this was a club that was moulded around Peter Vermees for such a long time that they are trailing way behind in a lot of ways. Calvin Harris is coming from Colorado, Jaden Reed has signed from St. Louis, Justin Reynolds from Chicago, Wyatt Meyer from Nashville, and that is kind of it. Like, so that this rebuild is only just getting started, and I think that really adds to the sense that this will be a transitional year for SKC. As I've already mentioned, Raphael Vicky is the new head coach. He says he wants SKC to play with the ball and then be aggressive without it, which, as I said with Matt Wells, is straight out of the rule book for every new manager in world soccer says those things. You have to say those things when you come into a club, and then you realise you have Sporting KC's squad and you can't play that way. We will see. I am sceptical just because of where this club is at the moment that anything is going to be as proactive as Vicky as promised coming into this team. In terms of the tactical framework, obviously a lot of it is unknown at the moment, but a base 4-2-3-1 seems like a decent bet. I know, Joe, you mentioned for Backheel done it in pre-season. They've been inverting the fullbacks. I guess that could potentially help with keeping the ball and controlling possession. But then that puts a lot of pressure on the centre-backs in defensive transition to cover that space in behind. I do think there will be a commitment to playing with the ball and trying to be proactive without it, not just because of what Vicky says, but also because of David Lee's background. I just wonder if it might be quite messy for a lot of this year until they start to build out the roster in a more meaningful way. In terms of key players, I think you have to start with Dejan Joveljic when talking about key players. Obviously, we know what he can do for a good team, having won MLS Cup with the Galaxy 2 seasons ago, which feels like a long time ago for both the Galaxy and for Dejan Joveljic. But even last season, for a bad team, he scored 13 non-penalty goals for SKC, which wasn't a bad return at all, considering how bad they were in terms of giving him service. Having Joveljic is something, I guess, for SKC to cling to right now, because a lot of the other, I guess, like better teams in MLS would love to have a focal point like him. So they are fortunate, I guess, to have him, although they paid big bucks for him last year. Manu Garcia is probably the other player in the team you would feel good about. He finished 2025 with 8 goal contributions. It felt like a lot of people thought he was going to be this creative number 10, and he can play there, but he's probably better in a deeper role. I know, Joe, you called him a pass before the pass guy for SKC. Which then begs the question: who's the pass guy in this team? Dan Saloy, he has, I know in pre-season, been mentioned as like a number 10 for this team. Literally, as we were recording today, he is gone. Yeah, he has gone to Toronto FC. You know, they just needed to clear the decks a little bit more, Kansas City. So, yeah, I don't really know where the creativity is coming from in this team. Can they get some consistent productivity out of Calvin Harris as a wide player? I guess the same question for Suleimanov on the right side. So I cannot stress enough how sparse KC's depth chart is at the moment. I know Ben Wright at 615 has depth charts for the whole league, as Joe does as well at Backheel. There is basically nobody on the KC one. They have 7 defenders for 4 positions. 2 of their midfielders, Jacob Bartlett and Cielo Scantret, don't have Wikipedia pages. So this is a shell of a team. That will surely come together a bit over the course of the year, but I think the first few months of the season until the summer could be really, really rough. And so my VSP for KC is that by the time the summer transfer window opens, they will actually be below their points per game ratio for last season, which is not what, I'm sorry SKC fans, but like their ratio last year was 0.82 points per game. I think it's going to be a really ugly start to the year. They have done the first part of the rebuild, which I guess is clearing the decks. Good job on that. Like, they've given David Lee and Vicky a lot of freedom there. They haven't really built out the team beyond that point. And so, yeah, I would be closing my eyes until the summer if I was a KC fan, unfortunately.
Graham, you're totally right about that. I mean, I don't think we have seen a team in this spot this close to the season ever in MLS. I mean, definitely not since I've started doing this, and I think this is unprecedented stuff. The roster is so sparse. You mentioned Shallowy being traded, which I guess more space. I mean, he's on the last year of his deal, and I think you can't upgrade on him, certainly. But, yeah, man, it's sparse. Graham, did you mention, and I apologize if I missed it, Lasse Berg Janssen? in your preview. Did that come out? I apologize.
No, I didn't. Is he? I think was that one confirmed relatively.
Yeah, so that one has
recently?
been a
Yeah.
recent confirmation.
Sorry, I
So
missed that
he is.
wording, yeah.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's not going to move the needle in the short term. Let's
about
put it that way. He joined from Malmo and is, I think, going to be a really good player. Actually, in MLS, he's going to be their new defensive midfielder. I think we are going to see him and Manu Garcia start next to each other, which I have no idea if that's defensively solid enough, but it's fun. So there are some interesting things happening with this team, and they're absolutely not. Like I can say this for sure. They're not done adding pieces in this transfer window. Just we have to be realistic about the quality of pieces you can add at this point. Like teams don't really want to sell you their good players, and MLS teams can overpay a bit. That's fine, but really it's going to be rough for a little while. And Graham, I think your VSP is right on the nose.
Fantasy United players, if you're looking for a way to expand your budget, just pick whatever attackers are going against Kansas City for the first part of this year.
Great call.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Great call.
Yeah.
Oh boy, fun times at SKC then. Thank you very much for that one, Graham. Let's take one more quick break. When we come back, we've got two more teams left to preview. They are St. Louis and Vancouver. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our MLS season previews. Let's go to St. Louis City. Joe Harry's going to tell us all about St. Louis. Oh yeah, you get ready, Joe. Kicking off the MLS season, of course, at 2:30 Eastern on Saturday against Charlotte FC. 120-ish years ago, the St. Louis hosted the 1904 Olympics, the first one held outside Europe, in fact. The 1904 Olympics, Joe, included a marathon where runners got lost, they were chased by dogs, and even poisoned by car exhaust. The race was run in the hottest part of the day in dusty country roads with minimal water supply. It was 24 miles. It wasn't even standard regulation. There were 32 athletes coming from 7 nations, and only 14 of those managed to actually complete the race. The actual winner, a guy called Thomas Hicks, was near collapse and hallucinating at the end of the race, a side effect of being administered brandy, raw eggs, and strychnine, which is kind of a poison, by his trainers. The fourth place finisher, Andrin Carvajal, took a nap during the race after eating rotten apples and finished fourth in that race where 14 finishers were included.
If you'd like to
today.
learn more, John Boyce has an excellent video about it on YouTube. Cannot recommend it enough.
It's wild. So there's a marathon. Also, soccer was included in the 1904 Olympics. Only 3 teams competed, so they all got a top 3 finish. Congratulations to them. 2 American teams and a Canadian one. The Canadian team won. The 2 American teams were Christian Brothers College and St. Rose Parish. And there you go. The city hosted the first Olympic gold medal ever awarded to North Americans in soccer. Great.
I have so many follow-up questions. Like, were Olympics not about nationalities back then? Like, how did the U.S. sneak 2 team? I don't know. I have many follow-ups,
Trial
and that's not even
exhibition,
getting
maybe.
to the exhaust or the rotten apples thing. You know.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions out there, but as you say, we can dig into those another day. Maybe we'll season preview the 1904 Olympics at some point if there's another pandemic or something. Will St. Louis do as well as those last 2 American teams who finished 2nd and 3rd in a 3-team competition in the 1904 Olympics? Joe, let us know. What do you think?
I think so. Yeah, I think proportionally, yes. I would say that's probably right on the money. Where they finished last season, St. Louis, 32 points, 13th in the West, 24th in MLS. I've adapted my gone to a new thing. Here we go. Ready? Olaf Melberg, fired. Lutz Pfannenstiel, fired. Playoffs. Fired. That doesn't work anymore. But they missed the playoffs. That's
doesn't
the
make a
reality.
trend.
In just about every sense, last season was a waste for St. Louis City. They struggled to gain ground in a bad Western Conference. They made it pretty clear along the way that their impressive debut season in 23 was a blip rather than the start of a trend, which we kind of already knew. But still, to their credit, they revamped really quickly and began that process quickly last season after just 15 games. The head coach that they'd combed through 25,000 candidates to find was fired, and Olaf Melberg, who I mentioned already. Lutz Pfannenstiel was axed in August after he was supposed to be on the Club World Cup broadcast booth, and then didn't do that, presumably because it was going to look really bad while his real job was in the toilet. He doesn't have that job anymore, and he's Aberdeen's now. So
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he
Sitting
is,
on the
Graham.
roof of Pit Audrey watching games, which is a thing that has actually happened.
an absolute
way.
icon. But he
Does anyone else sit on the roof, or is it just him on his own?
No, just him. He's decided he likes to sit on the roof of the stadium to watch games. That or the dugout as the sporting director.
Good for him, man.
Lutz is going to Lutz, man.
Just marching to the beat of his own drum, and St. Louis was marching to his beat to their detriment. What's changed over the offseason? A whole lot. Not a lot of outgoings. Ja Klaus is the really one notable one. He is now an LA Galaxy player. We talked about him earlier in the week. He was cashed over there. And now St. Louis need another striker. It looks like they're going to sign Sergio Cordoba, according to Tom Bogert, on loan from Young Boys in Switzerland. Is that the second Young Boys mention of the show today? Wow.
But the first one to clarify, it's a soccer club for people not familiar with Switzerland, so that's important.
It is a soccer club, yes.
Wankdorf's finest. Thank you very much.
There you go. Didn't hear what you said. I'm just going to keep
Wankdorf.
talking. Cordoba was a former Vancouver Whitecaps player. He's fine. He's not great, but he's going to be fine. Corey Ray is this team's new chief soccer officer, well-regarded, was in the Toronto FC front office when they were at their best, was in the Columbus front office when they were at their best. He's now in charge of this team. Seems to make sense to me. Yoann Demey is the new coach of this group, former Columbus Crew assistant. He was on Wilfred Nance's staff before that. He became the youngest person to coach an MLS game ever at age 29 when he took over as an interim for FC Cincinnati in 2019. I remember interviewing him on MLS Assist at Total Soccer Show podcast back in the day. What an absolute icon. He is in town and is very well regarded by folks across the MLS landscape. Mamadou Fall is here. Talked about him a bunch. Probably don't need to do it a whole lot more on this episode. I'm really high on Mamadou Fall. Very, very, very high. 23 years old, coming back from Barcelona. Former LAFC standout, got the move to Spain, never could quite crack it at Villarreal or Barcelona. Injuries and who knows what else. But he's back now in MLS. A really nice gamble here from St. Louis. He's somebody that could help really embody their new identity, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. They've added a few kind of known-ish quantities to the American game. Daniel Edelman, who's going to be in midfield for them. Rafael Santos, who's going to be a left back option, left wing back option for them. And then Dante Polvara, another Aberdeen reference. Let's go. He is a former Charleston Battery player, knows kind of the rhythms of soccer in the United States. He's 25 and is going to probably earn minutes as an outside back and in central midfield this year. Tactically, I think St. Louis could be one of the most interesting teams to watch this year because there's a real shift, I think, in the works for them. Now, we don't know a lot of the specifics because we've never seen Yoann Demey coach a team before, really, that was his own. Cincinnati doesn't count. And so we don't know everything, but I did see some of St. Louis in preseason when I was out at Coachella. And just from what we know about Demey and Corey Ray, coming from possession-y sorts of clubs, I would expect that this team is going to keep a lot of the ball. And from what they were doing before, which was the exact opposite of that, I think a real shift is in the cards. I saw a sort of a 3-4-3 for St. Louis with a lot of tight central combinations, a lot of short passing. I don't know if the roster as constructed really fits that still because they're pretty early on in this transition, and that's a question mark for me. But I do think we're going to see Roman Berkey playing some short passes out of the back, and Mamadou Fall and Falou Fall, the two Falls in this back line, both incredible technicians at center back. Those guys are going to play some nice line-breaking passes. Chris Durkin is sort of a guy who I think fits this system a little bit. Edouard Louven, if he's available, and we should know Edouard Louven is an amazing soccer player. His wife is currently dealing with brain cancer, and so I don't think St. Louis fans should expect to see him, nor should they really care, because it's a reminder that there's a lot of things out there that are far, far more important than this silly game. So my heart goes out to the whole Louven family. Sounds like it's been a really difficult situation, and I think we can all understand that. If he's available, is elite in this league and fits this style to a T. Marcel Hartel is another key player for them. He's going to be probably in that left half space. Really good player, was a standout with St. Pauli in the second Bundesliga before St. Louis got him. He's going to benefit a lot, I think, from this style change. Conrad Vollum, while I'm running through key players, he's the last one I'll mention. He was on loan last year from Europe, and now they brought him back on a permanent deal. He played left wing back, right wing back. He played in central midfield. He played as a defensive midfielder, as a more attacking player. He is really good. He is very, very good. At least a well above average starter when played as a left wing back. I love the idea of him playing as that in this team because I think he will cook this year. So he's a guy to watch. In terms of my VSP, no team in MLS will increase their passes per game by more than St. Louis. I think Minnesota are maybe an outside contender for this sort of thing, but I do think St. Louis will end up with this award, if we're going to call it that. Last year, they ranked 23rd in MLS in passes per game. And that was in the afterglow of them trying to become the West's finest purveyor of Red Bull ball. That is now no longer what they plan to do. This year, I think things are going to look very different for St. Louis. I think they're going to go from being a bottom 10 team to a top 10 teams in terms of passes per game, but that's not the VSP. They're just going to increase their passes per game by more than any other team in the league. I think they're going to be a fun watch. I really don't think this team is going to be very good right away, although they could be. I mean, there is talent in this team. It would not totally shock me if they were decent, but I think this is going to be a little bit of a longer build, which is fine. You know, we're maybe looking at them kind of building for the first fall to spring season in the 27-28 calendar when MLS shifts that. And I think that's a reasonable timeline. And this year we should end the year, even if the results aren't great, feeling better about St. Louis City at the end of the season than it did when we began.
I think they're set up for their second credible playoff push, right? Like going back to the expansion season as the first. Like I agree with you, Joe. Like speaking with Corey Ray for a piece that came out Wednesday on The Guardian about
Really
like
good.
how chief soccer officers are preparing for the schedule shift and the sprint season and all of these factors. Like one thing that I did sneak in there, and this was on record, it just got cut to the floor, but that the intention to hire domestically Yohan Demay, it was like in theory, he actually kind of referenced was like, of course you want to do these global searches and it looks really good to have thousands of applicants and whatever, but ultimately at the end of the day, like it's important for us to get good quick. Like we have a lot of ground to make up and it felt like wasted time to not bring a coach in as soon as possible. And so being able to get guys with experience in this league was really important. And I think with Demay, you have that sweet spot of a fresh ideology that hasn't really been given its chance to take root. But also being based in context that is very MLS specific. And so I'm really bullish on the potential under Yohan Demay. And I think that a lot of people in the league have been expecting this was a when, not if, he would get a job like this. And so very excited to see how it goes. And I think it's a really good kind of standard of club where you'll be well supported by ownership. You have great facilities, and now it's on you to get the players in order. I mean, yeah, like Joe, you laid it out really well. Like the questions ultimately are just going to be, can the top end talent on this squad contend with the top end talent on other squads? And of course, it's not just the LAFCs and Seattle's we're talking about. We are talking about that, that playoff class that's going to, or the group that's going to be challenging at the same tier of the table from like RSL San Jose, Galaxy, Houston, Dallas, whatever. And so it should be a much more fun season. St. Louis, I think it's a great atmosphere when the vibes are good. And of course, right now there is supporter tension that's going to be, worth just mentioning, but I suspect you're going to see it maybe across the league. We'll see coming out of the weekend just with signage in stadiums. So for the fans who are there, I think that the team will be more entertaining, at least in their own right for soccer purposes.
There we go. That's St. Louis. One more team to cover in our MLS preseason previews. Jeff Rueter's going to be our anchor man on this one. It's Vancouver Whitecaps. Vancouver has a steam-powered clock that whistles every 15 minutes using actual steam from underground pipes. It's located in the historic Gastown district. Not the Steamtown district, notably. The Gastown Steam Clock, it's called. It was designed by Raymond Saunders in 1977. It uses steam from the city's underground district heating system to power its whistles. And it appears to be a 19th century relic, but as I mentioned, it was built in the 70s to hide. It was built as a steam vent to hide a steam vent and now functions as a popular tourist attraction. A clock powered by steam. Whatever next, Vancouver, you crazy guys up there. So, will Vancouver continue to challenge at the top of the West, or will they run out of steam?
I think there's still steam. And I love that even in the 70s, nostalgia was a thing, even as now we're still living through 70s nostalgia to this very day. Vancouver Whitecaps, why in the world would a city want to lose this team? When we last left the Whitecaps, they were one of two teams that could credibly claim to be the best team in Major League Soccer over the course of 2025. And they really overperformed a lot of people's expectations. It was the kind of coalescence of a lot of players coming together, having the best years of their career, and some of those really kind of sneaky flyers that Axel Schuster, as chief soccer officer, likes to bring in every window, these sorts of, let's see if we can maximize the value here. Very good work in the recruitment team across the board from everyone involved, past and present. They had the most goals for and the fewest goals against in the West. That's pretty good. They had career years, like I said, from a handful of players. Thomas Muller's arrival in the summer sort of rejuvenated them after a heartbreaking and very disappointing CONCACAF Champions Cup final that initially had left them a little bit rattled. They went to MLS Cup. They gave Miami a proper challenge. They really shouldn't have pulled Ali Ahmed when they did. Lessons learned. Cup raised by David Beckham and the Moss brothers, and on we go. What changed over the offseason? Well, it's the cost of success in Major League Soccer. Just ask Philly how it went. Ali Ahmed immediately gone to Norwich. Pretty quickly became their best player. By the way, he's been phenomenal for Norwich right now in a very difficult season for them. Kind of taking over some of the attacking responsibility, I guess, of Josh Sargent in a very different way. Jaden Nelson is off to Austin, recouped to regenerate the transfer kitty. And then they brought in some more of these players who they're hoping to get more out of than we've seen in the past. Olivier Larraz is someone who was pretty unsung in Colorado, can step in, play some good minutes when needs to, some consistency questions, which is why he's not a regular starter per se, but I don't think he's really going to be asked to do that, and I think that will just help with rotations this year. Bruno Caicedo comes in. He's an Ecuadorian right winger. A shooty boy, took about 2.5 per 90. He's really good at getting into the box and drawing penalties. Drew like 3 or 4 a year. That is a skill, actually, and especially when you have someone like Thomas Muller, or you have alternatives like Ryan Gold and Brian White who can take those penalties. I would want to earn them personally. Not much of a crossing guy, so that's just something to keep in mind. He's going to be much more trying to cut into the half spaces. Azeel Jackson is probably going to project to the left wing, which he didn't do to great success playing left of center in Columbus. I was a bit surprised he didn't actually take off better in Columbus. Seemed like the profile of player that Wilfried Nancy usually is able to help evolve. So usually likes to drift central as well, which again helps with the wingers trying to cut inwards, but also try to get beyond the back line. Let's see how his off-ball movement looks at this stage of his career. And then Sheikh Sabali comes in. He's a backup striker from Metz up the Mets. He can play on the right wing as well. He had 12 starts at striker for Metz in Ligue 1 this year, 970 minutes, 0 goals. Not the best return, you would say, for a striker. I'm not big usually on using international slots for backups, but if you've got them, and if you've got this good of a domestic core coming back, I think that you can get a little bit more clever with those. Jesper Sorensen's in his second year. He was an absolute revelation in his first. The team is so distinct. Like you watch Vancouver, and I think even if you weren't able to see the logos of the score bug in the top of the broadcast, if you're watching at home, you would recognize Vancouver at this stage. They are going to control a game and keep it with a tight grip. They're going to try to advance the ball upfield pretty quickly and then raise their back line to condense the field. And it's worked to great success. It's a system that players love to play in as well. Off-ball movement is rewarded. Third runs can be rewarded. And I think just being able to scamper with your friends is a reward in its own right, isn't it, fellas? The key players that they have coming back, we've got Ryan Gauld, as good as a newcomer at this point. You know, a serious frontrunner for comeback player of the year at this point. Probably off to the right at this stage with Thomas Muller. If he's going to be starting regularly, that would be as a second striker. Brian White would be the first striker, I guess you would call it, but center forward, really. I think he's a dark horse for this World Cup squad. I think that he just brings in a physicality that no one else in this pool really can match at this stage and do a lot of the stuff that kept Josh Sargent in the cycle when you're looking for 2022. He's well-rounded. He does the hard yards. He's good at passing in the forward line as well, and don't sleep on his finishing chops when he's just getting into classic number 9 scruffy goals. Those are valuable too. Thomas Muller is here. It's not just his scoring chops. He was sneaky good at the old man press and being able to pry the ball off of a dawdling opponent's foot. He also really changed the culture and the aura, and I think you could just see a lot of players get to further confidence, again, especially after such a difficult midpoint of the season. 8 goals in 958 minutes. He'd only exceeded that total once since 2019-20 with FC Bayern, so a good kind of return to form from him in some ways, and I think he's finding a lot of joy playing in Major League Soccer and in Vancouver in particular. Tristan Blackman, Sebastian Berhalter, 2 more domestic guys who had the best year of their career so far. Blackman, I guess that's a little bit more questionable, but he won Defender of the Year, so history will say that he did have the best year of his career so far. Berhalter is another one who I think is a World Cup hopeful. Love his late arriving ability. I've referenced it with other players a couple of times, but also really good at that interplay to keep the ball moving and that composure. I think there had been questions about his physicality when he was younger and he was kind of bouncing around Columbus and Austin, but he's really come together and is maybe the best all-around domestic number 8 we've had in MLS since like the heyday of Nagby, which is high praise, but he's been that good so far. Andres Kubas, Tate Johnson, Matthias Laborda. It's a good system that gets players in their best spots and rewards them to do their best work. My VSP, last year, they had 2 members of the best 11, Berhalter and Blackman, already alluded to. They were the first players in club history not named Kendall Waston to make it onto an MLS best 11, and my VSP is they will have another member this year. I'm not going to guarantee which one it will be, but I think that right now this team does still have the top end talent to contend on every front that they're in. And I really hope they can find a resolution for a stadium, because it would be such a shame to lose this team, and certainly when it's in kind of its best era since they moved to Major League Soccer.
Yeah, I love this team, man. I absolutely love this team. Gauld feels like a mystery box where if they get Ryan Gauld and actually get him on the field this season, where he's not going to play until April, they've already said, because he's coming back from injury still.
Which is smart.
Which is smart, right? But I think the question for them is, if they get Gauld, can they be LAFC? Can they be Miami? And I don't think if they don't have Gauld, I think if they don't have Gauld, they will not be that. And it's maybe a little bit of a risky spot to be resting on a guy who seems like he just can't get healthy. But either way, they're going to be very good. Like, their floor is a very, very good team, probably top 4 in the West. Their ceiling is wildly high. They just maybe need that ceiling to be propped up by an oft-injured Scott.
Ceiling at BC Place fell in a few years ago, didn't it, by the way? Was that
Probably fell on the motocross that they're doing there.
Didn't snow make it collapse? Am I remembering
know.
something?
So that's why they moved on from Vanni Sartini.
There we go. Vancouver, you have been previewed, as has every single Major League Soccer team this season. What a ride, Jeff. What a ride. Having fun?
What a ride. This was great. Thank you for letting me crash your hang for all week. It's been a delight. It's been an absolute delight.
Absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much. And listener, thank you very much for joining us in this one. Of course, we have our regular Tuesday Major League Soccer shows for you to enjoy throughout the season and much, much more. And let's enjoy the season as it kicks off this weekend. Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much for your contribution, sir.
Thank you very much, my friend. If we could, to extend the running time even more as we sign off, I'm curious if people have like a team or two that they previewed that they feel especially bullish about. I think from all the ones I talked through, I think it's Seattle and Charlotte are the two that I feel the most optimistic about.
I like it. San Diego for me, probably. Yeah.
San Diego, yeah. I would say Vancouver's the best team I had, but the team that maybe I fell for the hardest compared to where I expected them to was Houston, weirdly. Toronto I also like. I don't know if the Shallowy signing really moves that needle much further either, but I think that he will help contribute the goals while they're waiting to see if Josh Sargent's allowed to play for Toronto FC.
I'd say Chicago Fire. I had them in episode 1. I think they're going to have a good year. So,
Yeah, even though you disparaged their name, Graham.
well, notably, what was the other city? Seattle. They are not the Seattle Fire, so they chose a different
It's
direction. Yeah,
San Jose went with earthquakes as well. It's kind of similar vibe, right?
it is a little bit. Yeah,
A little bit.
Yeah.
there's a theme here.
There is indeed. There is indeed. Graham Ruthven, thank you very much for your themes and everything else you do.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
And Joe Lowery, thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks, Ryan.
Once again, thank you, Jeff Rueter.
Thank you, Ryan.
And thank you very much, listener, for joining us on this one. We'll be back on the feed very shortly. Check out on Saturday morning. You might just see some listener questions parked there. But for now, bye.